your skin, that shit is popping, girl. Body on 10, damn, you got it, girl. You gotta boss up. Getting them checks, living your best. Racks up. Oh, keep walking with confidence. Effortlessly, you let them know who is in command. You just that and more. Don't forget it. God worked hard on you for sure. Lexus Exodus. Shout out to my exes. I just play it day by day. Whoa, never hearing what they say. Oh, I just do it my way. All I got is these broken clocks. Hey boos, hey! Happy Friday, y'all! I hope you had a great week. It is Lexus Exodus, leader of the Black Woman Exodus. Like always, if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. Please share. Please say hey to me in the chat. Say what's up to me. Let me know that you're listening. Also, when you have a moment, please pause the video and follow my backup channel. It's called LexX. That's LEXEX, and you'll find it in the description below. Okay, so first we're going to start with a listener letter for our Ask Lex segment. And if you enjoy this segment or would like to write in for feedback or advice from myself in the audience, feel free to email me at lexusexoduschannel@gmail.com. So this email will call you CJ. So CJ writes, "Hello, I'm new to your channel, and I wanted to ask you a question about names. Do you think Black women with ghetto names can successfully date out? I've always had trouble with my name. People either can't pronounce it to save their lives, or they just assume the worst because of my name. What's your opinion on those kinds of names? It would make for an interesting YouTube topic. Thank you." Okay, so let's get into it. So I thought that this was a very interesting question. And I say that because I also have an ethnic sounding name. It's not anything like Sharkeisha or anything like that that's really difficult to pronounce, but it is definitely a name traditionally associated with Black women. So I won't say my name, of course, I don't want to dox myself, but when you think of names like Ebony or names like Monique, those aren't necessarily quote unquote ghetto names, but they are traditionally Black girl names. You don't, run into a white girl named Ebony or a white girl named, I don't know, Alexis or Monique. So in any event, I've never had any trouble dating out due to my name. I just haven't. And I know you said your name is really difficult to pronounce. So I don't know. I think that people may ask you how to pronounce your name, but after that's done, then they keep it moving and they continue the conversation. And of course, you didn't share your name. You didn't divulge your government name. But what I can say, just speaking in generalities, I think you're probably thinking a little bit too much into it. I think other groups of men from different cultures and different backgrounds, they have preconceived notions, whether they're good or bad, about other ethnicities, period. We all do, we have preconceived notions about different groups of men being Black women. So I wouldn't worry about his perception or him assuming the worst about you just because of your name. I think that it's important to remember he approached you for a reason. So he's attracted to you, he's interested. So I think you should simply just be yourself. And then once he sees naturally how sweet you are, once he sees how smart, how cultured, and how intelligent you are, all of those preconceived notions that he may have formerly had about your name, about your ethnic group or whatever it is, I think they'll naturally go out the window. And that's just my thoughts. Again, I may be speaking on that from a different perspective because, like I said, although I do have an ethnic name, I don't have a quote unquote ghetto, hard to pronounce name. So I don't know. I am curious about what you guys in the chat and in the comment section think. So feel free to chime in, especially if you have a very unique name like CJ, which is very difficult to pronounce. So I don't know. So chime in. Let us know your thoughts. Okay, now it's time for the bullshit. So y'all, Cynthia G did it again, y'all. She did it again. So, as if the Tyrones weren't triggered enough, she had another Brad call in late last night, past my bedtime. Y'all was in bed listening to this with my earbuds in while my husband was snoring next to me. But she had a Brad call in last night, and they both read these fools for filth, y'all. And these delusional dummies are triggered. They're triggered. We talked about briefly about how they doxed Cynthia, about how they're sharing her address, they're sending her death threats, all sorts of bull crap, all because they received a reality check. And I can't, y'all. So I was in her chat yesterday, and there were a few supporters of mine who also listened to Cynthia who were in there. And one girl reached out to me, and she like, "Girl, with all these dusties and their dust bucket activity, you ain't ever going to run out of content." And I hollered, y'all, because it's like literally every single day, every day they give me something new to talk about, and it's not even daily on the daily, y'all. My email is literally backed up with dusties and all these crazy outlandish stories of them engaging in their BS. I can't even keep up with all the tips and suggestions that you guys send me. So if you have sent something to me recently and I haven't responded, it's because I'm literally getting hundreds of tips from you all on a regular basis about these dust mites. But anyway, the delusional dummies are back at it again. And we already discussed the profile of your delusional dusty. So I'll give a very, very brief recap just as a reminder of what we're looking at when we're dealing with these dummies. So these delusional dummies are Tyrones who live in La La Land, y'all. So again, they truly do consider themselves high value. They live in La La Land. They consider themselves kings, even though they have no kingdom. They consider themselves high value, even though they are broke and collectively they have no resources at all. They think that they're the most desired groups of men, even though historically we know women, they sought after men who can protect and provide for them, and they can't do either of those things. So Cynthia G hosts another show last night where she talks to Brad and he calls in and really discusses the delusional thought process of these dummies and their delusions of grandeur and their really irrational ideology. So I want to watch this video and I want to react together with to what was shown last night. So let's start here.
Towards 90% of these manosphere guys, because it started off with looking at the white manosphere. These 50-year-old bald white truck drivers sitting in their car ranting against women, how women are all entitled and women, I'm so lucky to have finally gone MGTOW. And I'm watching these guys and I'm thinking, like, I understand you don't want to get married. I understand that you want to go your own way. But at the end of the day, these women that you hate so much, if you were to create a Tinder profile with your photo versus any one of these women that you denigrate constantly on your streams, they would get 100 times many more matches than what you would get. And I became increasingly disillusioned with the manosphere, and I started making videos against certain characters very tentatively at first. I'm like, hang on a second, these guys are always complaining about single mothers, yet they advocate for going around and sleeping around and picking up women. And it's like, but you're the ones creating the single mothers that you blame society for all of its woes. And that led me to the black manosphere. And that was a completely different kettle of fish as well, because every video, like I came into contact with Kevin Samuels, right? I found his channel. And every video, he's attacking black women. He sometimes frames it as just, quote, women, but he always frames it as black women. That's also another big thing. And all of this little, I call them house Negroes, all the little guys that simp to him, all of these butt dancing guys that constantly spam at Kevin Samuels in the title, constantly trying to suck up to Kevin Samuels. Nope.
Y'all, he called them house Negroes and said that they be buck dancing. And I'm telling y'all, I bet you after this, guess who's going to get all the backlash? It's not going to be Brad, who came with all the smoke. Where the shots are fired from it. They going to clap back at Cynthia G. They going to buck up to her because these men are a bunch of pussies, a bunch of pansies, and they only reserve this smoke for women, not for men that they should be competing against and that they should be bucking up against. Let's keep going.
Trading black women. Yet one thing I've noticed about these guys is if you say one cross word to them, if you refer to them as house Negroes, they're like, oh, he's being racist, which of course I'm not. It's like some of my favorite icons from
Yeah, but you have to, I mean, this is the thing. It sounds a certain way. It does. Like,
yeah, it does sound a certain way.
It sounds a certain way. I mean, I feel you, but it sounds a certain way. It really
totally. and that's why
it hit hard when you said.
Look, I'm sorry. That's just how I looked at these guys. These guys that are just totally dusty, attacking black women. And I'm looking at these guys and I'm thinking, but you are not high-value men. You guys are just these low-value men that got sent your own way. And they're constantly calling themselves high-value men. And I just couldn't understand it. So that's basically how I came into contact with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. What was one of the biggest differences? Because you said that was a whole different beast than, the white manosphere. And of course, that is where the black manosphere got it from. Like, they copied it from the white manosphere. They basically took the blueprint. What was one of the biggest differences that you noticed between the black manosphere versus what you saw among the white truckers who were just talking about women?
Well, probably the biggest difference is that the white manosphere would talk about just women, whereas the black manosphere would say black women. And the thing is, right, when they would talk about white women, they wouldn't say, well, white women. They would just talk about women. That would be their analogy that they would use. Whereas with black women, they would say, they would specifically point out the black women, but name the same flaws. And I kind of felt that maybe there was some sort of internalized self-loathing there. That's kind of the sense that I got. I feel that a lot of these guys in the black manosphere, I feel that a lot of them have a combination of narcissism and an inferiority complex. When you have these guys that have a kind of narcissistic attitude, like I'm better than everybody, but you can tell that they have an inferiority complex, because at the end of the day, it's like they complain that average women have unrealistically high standards. But if they were these high-value men that they preach that they are, then why would you be so upset that average-looking women have high standards? It's because you think that that's the best you can get. So with regards to the white manosphere and the black manosphere, the difference between the two is that the white manosphere, sometimes they do. I've seen video titles like The State of White Women. I've seen guys do videos like that. But I've noticed that with the white man, and I don't mean to differentiate that they're two separate different things, because there is some overlap there. But the difference is the black manosphere are always talking about what's wrong with black women, whereas the white manosphere are usually talking about what's wrong with women per se. And that seems to be it. And like I said, a lot of internalized self. It's almost like they fetishize white women. That's the other thing I've noticed as well. Some of these guys will fetishize white women. And it's like, well, hang on a second. You're fetishizing them. What does that say about you as a person? There seems...
Woo! So let's pause there. So, man, Brad is coming out, no holds barred, shooting shots, y'all. Man, he's dropping bombs. So he's talked about how they have this internalized inferiority complex in their narcissists. What did I tell y'all? And don't we talk about this? So I talk about how studies show that black men have a disproportionate amount of people who suffer from narcissism. So it's so weird because they're narcissistic and they'll outwardly have this bravado and, will throw their weight around, but it's very superficial. It's very surface level, because in all actuality, they really hate themselves. And they're experiencing this extreme amount of self-loathing, and they're projecting those feelings of, having, this discontent about themselves, being unhappy with themselves, being insecure about themselves. They're projecting that onto black women because they hate themselves. He also talks about this fetishizing, which we all know that's, these swirling relationships between Tyrone and between white women, it's all based on fetishizing. That's why they'll talk about stupid shit like, yo, I'm gonna get Becky from Becky. Talking about fellatio and stuff, and talking about, they'll talk about big dings and stupid shit that really doesn't matter. That surface level, lack of substance bullshit. But let's keep going. I'm going to fast forward this a bit because Brad starts to really get into it around the 16-minute mark, where he really says some very impactful, powerful commentary. So let's fast forward this a bit, and then we will continue to react and talk through.
These women are just trying to find their way in the world. It's like they're putting themselves, through university. They're trying to do all of these things.
He's talking about black women, y'all.
And then you have these guys that for whatever reason, they think, no, these black women should submit to my masculinity. And as I pointed out on previous live streams, these men don't have any masculinity to submit to. They're basically just these guys that, if you look at the income difference, if you look at the average household income of a black man, I actually personally don't believe in the idea that women should submit to men. But these men believe that that's their role, that's what women should be doing. They should be submitting to men. So they're like, oh, these black women, they need to respect my masculinity. But I look at their economic circumstances, their cultural circumstances, like some of the people that you've roasted on your channel, and I think these men don't have any masculinity to submit to. I don't understand how they can have this ego about themselves. They can pretend
you and me
like
both, Brad.
All of that. It's like there's this one guy I know who he doesn't have a job. He sits there on YouTube every day begging for likes, begging for super chats from like 100 viewers.
So let's pause there. So Brad says, he talks about black women being in university and being educated. Statistically, we know that we're killing it. We're the most highest educated groups of people in the country and are starting these successful businesses at an extremely high rate. He also talks through the fact that, these men, these Tyrones want submission, but they offer no masculinity to submit to in return. So it's like, so if you really, really sit down and really critically think about what they're asking for, you think, okay, what are the attributes normally associated with men? So men are supposed to protect, they're supposed to provide. Well, Tyrones fail to do either. So it's like, no, then you're not masculine or worthy enough for submission because you don't offer any of those things that traditionally come with masculine men worthy of submission. Let's keep going.
Any man, whatever dynamic, but for this one, black men being the head is more important. But they're just not giving us anything to submit to. They won't build, they won't try to compete, they're always complaining, but they're doing nothing about it. And I just, like, for me, it's like, okay, well, black women need a second opinion. So let's get someone else to come on here so that you can see that there's a problem here. And I don't think that you're wrong for saying there's something wrong with them when this is what they're advertising.
Exactly. And I know this is a very harsh point to make. I know that it's harsh to say about them, but there are many, many black men out there who I have so much respect for. All of my favorite men that sounds so dumb thing to say, but a lot of my favorite content creators on YouTube are black men. But for every masculine black man out there who's actually built himself a nest egg to submit to, there are these guys that don't have anything to submit to. And for hundreds of years, I feel that they have been a cancer upon their people. They've been selling out their own women. When men came over to snatch them out of Africa, they said, okay, they sold them, right? For hundreds of years, they sat there and did nothing while they got pushed around and kicked around by more powerful demographics. And then when actual black men like Malcolm X came along and tried to make a stand for them, they said, oh no, don't do that, don't be uppity. They've been selling out their own people, their own women for a long time. And now they're on the internet selling out their own women once again. And it's not because, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that there are some black women out there who maybe...
So let's pause there. Whoa. So he is really giving an honest perspective on how outsiders view them. He called them a cancer, y'all. Sheesh. And, as a person whose mother passed of cancer, I don't take lightly. That's a very powerful, really a very vivid way to really describe how these men are. He talks about how they sold their people, how they sold their women and children, how they got pushed around and subjugated by a more powerful demographic, how they were dominated and easily overpowered. He's going in, y'all. Let's keep listening.
the stereotype that they go after. But they're not going after annoying, low-value women. They're going after women that are doing better than them. Because, like I said, these people have a cultural sickness. I'm not talking. This is nothing to do with race. This is to do with a culture that I'm seeing. I'm seeing a kind of sickness that goes on there, where they would rather than improving themselves, rather than ascending themselves, they become angry at their plight. They become angry at the fact that they're low value, and the first thing they do is they react to their base instinct, which is just to be angry at somebody. I'm going to be angry at the woman that I can't have. And that's what's going on here. And when I see people like, not just Kevin Samuels, there's dozens of these guys, many of them have well over 100,000 subscribers, is what they're doing is they're providing rage fuel for these men. They're providing a kind of fuel that keeps them in that state of bondage. So they can come on here and say that they're all alpha males with their deep voices and tattoos or whatever, but they are still in their heart of heart a slave. They're still submissive. They're still, because they've never learned to master their emotions. And they're total sellouts. They're total turncoats. That's what they are. And that's what I think of them. And it's very sad for me to constantly see this. And for them not to recognize, none of them have any critical thinking skills. None of them have any ability to introspect and think, rather than attacking the woman that I can't have, or the woman who is, who has a certain type of hair or something that I don't like, why not actually build something for myself in life? Why not actually build something to be proud of? But no, they submit because they're weak and they're spineless and they have no masculinity. They submit to whatever emotion they're feeling at the time, which is usually resentment. That's the way I look at it.
Well, listen, because at the end of the day...
Wow. So let's pause there. So this man, he is spewing facts, and he talks about Kitten Hill Samuels and how he has cultivated this cult-like following because there's a bunch of bitter, upset, resentful men who are angered and triggered because they've gone after women who are better than themselves. And it's interesting because when I think about that, Kevin Samuels, his expertise is creating and curating this misogynoir porn where, his following really gets off their sadists and their masochists, and they really get off on suffering and seeing Black women being denigrated and, being sort of cut down to their size. So yeah, he talks about that, about how all of these men who talk about their high value, they're actually low value. And, they're upset, they're triggered, they're bitter because, they've been burnt because they've spent their life chasing women that are better than themselves and getting turned down by them. He also said something very powerful. And he said, well, how come instead of attacking women, why don't you just build? Just build. Here's a thought. And it's because, like he said verbatim, they are weak and they're spineless. So instead of actually using that to challenge yourselves and to improve yourself and to become a true high value man who, women want and who women want to be with, they rather just become resentful, become nasty, and, put their kitten heel claws out and attack the women because they're weak and spineless. So let's fast forward a little bit more. I want to get to the 40-minute mark because Brad continues to talk very powerfully and impactfully about a few things. So let's fast forward this a bit.
Every single physical demographic, I'm attracted to the full gamut, and I'm not attracted to the stereotype of what these manosphere guys like this kind of boring, if that makes sense. It's like the types of women that they are always saying that we want. It's like, no, you don't speak to me. You don't know what my tastes are, and I'm not the anomaly. A lot of these guys are living in like the 13th century or something, and they have this very kind of backward definition of what an attractive girl is. It's like this little pretty kind of trad girl. It's this little white girl who's like in a little blue sundress, and she's got long blonde hair and blue eyes, and she's totally submissive, and it's like, that sounds like the most boring date of all time. But they make it seem like, men are walking away from a certain type of woman, whether it be Black women in general, or just a certain type of woman who carries herself. And it's like, no, you don't speak for me. You don't know what my impulses are. Every man has his own taste. And these guys have band together to denigrate one group of people, like one type of women. as if like men in general are walking away. They don't make up 1% of the population with their opinions. So yeah, it's very ridiculous when I hear these guys make these broad generalizations about what men or what white men are finding attractive.
So let's pause there. So this man talks about how he's attracted to all kinds of women. And I told y'all, so these men are trying to tell you what these other groups of men like, but it's like you're not these other groups of men. So why would we listen to you? And I feel like that grew in Cynthia G's intro video where she's like, as a woman, I could tell you how women feel. Well, here's the thing. As a woman who dates interracially, I can tell you that these men salivate over me. They do. And it has nothing to do with skin color. It has nothing to do with any of that dumb shit, colorism, none of that stupid featureism, texturism. They like beautiful women. They like beautiful women in all shapes and sizes and colors. Way back in my heyday, when I was on Tinder, back when I was in the boardroom, when I'm at these business dinners and these business functions, these well-off men of different ethnicities, they approached me because they wanted a pretty young thing on their arm. It didn't have anything to do with me being white, black, blue, or purple. They didn't care. So stop letting them tell y'all this bull crap. You're taking their word for it, instead of finding out for yourself from the horse's mouth. Instead of saying whatever, Tyrone, I'll find out and I'll date these men myself. You guys are taking their word for it. And I really wish you guys would also stop all that colorism bull crap. White men don't care if you're chocolate, caramel, or colorless. He don't care. He just doesn't care. My husband will attest to this as well. And I've actually, we recorded a video where he shared his perspective on interracial dating and, what men from other groups are looking for. And he talks about that. And side note, I never dropped it because YouTube is too crazy and I don't want to expose myself like that. I'll put it on the Patreon though. That's coming down the pipeline soon. But he even talks about how we don't give it, like we like beautiful women. That it doesn't matter what color you are. So don't let these triggered, bitter Tyrones try to tell you that these men aren't interested, because they'll see that hourglass shape, they'll see that pretty face, they'll see that smile, and they're going to think that you're drop dead gorgeous. So anyways, let's keep going.
They will talk about how they're not going to protect the community. They will simp for other men. And then they will blame the community and the condition of it on Black women. What do you think about that?
You mean me or just the chat in general?
No, you specifically.
Oh, me. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. No, they do that. What they do is they attack Black women on things that are stereotypical of Black culture. But then, they often themselves live up to those generalizations that they rant against. So yeah, they do. They denigrate. They point at Black women and they say all of these things. But those things are often symbolic of Black culture or Black socioeconomic status. So they do project, and that comes from that perspective, that they have some sort of like internalized self-hatred, that they can never, again, they say that, this was the point that I made the other day, right? It's kind of a controversial point, but I'm going by their standard of masculinity. They say that these Black women need to submit to my masculinity. But like I said, in America, power and money is masculinity. I know it's kind of a silly thing to say. What do you mean power and money is masculinity? But at the end of the day, right, and I use the example of a prison, you can have a bunch of guys who are in prison. They're big, they're bad, they're covered in tattoos, they're the shot callers, the alpha males. But at the end of the day, those guys can be as masculine as they want, they can be as tough as they want. But they are basically men inside of a little cage that was built by a bunch of skinny white guys that zoned there to be a private prison somewhere in some random part of some state, right? They are ultimately not masculine, because in America, money and power is masculinity. So what that means is that these guys want women to submit to their like aesthetic masculinity, like the things around, like the things about themselves that are masculine. They're, whatever type of aesthetics of masculinity they think they have. But in the long run, you're basically saying that these Black women should submit to you when you don't actually have any real power or any real wealth, aka masculinity. And that's been the point that I've been trying to make against these guys, is that you can't, I'm not saying that women should submit to men in general, but if that's the standard that you have, if that's the philosophy that you have, at least come prepared with a little bit of masculinity to submit to.
Ooh.
And that's my answer to that
Ooh.
question.
Oh, that don't feel good. Do it, Tyrone. That don't feel good to hear. A group, your counterparts in your community, kiki with other races of men talking trash about you. It don't feel good, does it? But y'all been doing that shit for years, and now y'all finally got a taste of your own medicine, and you triggered and you mad. But he's telling the truth, y'all. He's telling the truth. So he talks about how these men will attack Black women against stereotypes that they're perpetuating themselves. And they'll project, all of this negativity due to their own shortcomings. So you'll see them, they'll attack Black women for being single moms, but they're the deadbeats. They'll attack Black women for being strong and masculine, but it's like, well, because statistically you're absent and you abandon your children and your families. They'll also attack women for messing with Pookie and Ray Ray, but it's like, hey, all of you nakers are Pookie and Ray Ray. You know what I mean? Like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all attacking Black women, using these stereotypes as the basis of, the reason to attack them, but you guys are perpetuating them. You're at fault for them. He also talks about how money empowers masculinity, but these men have none. So no, you're not masculine. No, we're not going to submit to you if you have nothing, if you don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Sorry, I'm not interested. This is crazy. This guy's name, I keep calling him Brad. His name is actually, his channel is the CBP channel. So shout out to him if you guys want to follow him. By the way, I've heard him on the Honest Truth channel, which they shouted out in the beginning of this video. Apparently, that's where Cynthia found him as well. So shout out to the Honest Truth. That's really, really dope. His channel is growing a lot, and that's excellent that, that message is being shared and is getting out there. So anyway, so let's keep going.
Definitely. I mean, but it all relates, though. It's like you're saying that you want not more than one person, you're one person. But what do you think when you hear Black men say that Black women are to blame for the condition of the community and that welfare and feminism, if you've heard that, took them out of the home?
I mean, it's nonsensical. First of all, the whole narrative around feminism is totally ridiculous. First of all, I would challenge any one of these guys to define feminism, and they wouldn't be able to define it. Not in a million years could they give any close. Like, for example, they'll complain that the court system is biased against men, but it's actually feminists that actually tried to unbias that, because the way it was 100 years ago, men were the financial providers, and the women, they were the caregivers. So for many millennia, for many decades, that's the way the court system ruled, that the woman gets the custody and the first place. So like, these courts are biased against men because they make the man pay. Meanwhile, they see these women in general, not just Black women. They see women in general going off and earning their own money and accuse them of not being feminine. So there's a complete schizophrenia within the broader manosphere about what feminism is and how it represents society. Like, for example,
do y'all hear him? So he's really dropping bombs, y'all. He is really dropping bombs, and it's crazy. So he talks about feminism in such an articulate manner and really communicates well how a lot of these hoteps, a lot of these men in the red pill sector of YouTube and the manosphere, they'll talk about how, feminism broke down the community. And it's like, most Black women aren't feminists. They just aren't. They aren't. This is why, you have so many in the church, even though they're subjugated, even though they're being forced to tolerate and to endure these awful marriages where they're being cheated on, and where the pastor is just slinging peen everywhere and the deacons are raising hell. This is why you'll see social justice warriors, these women out really risking their lives on the front lines for these men. This is why you'll see, the mammying. This is why you'll see them call into Kevin Samuel's channel, eager for his approval. Most Black women aren't feminists. They aren't. They just aren't. They want traditional families. They want the traditional values. They want that nuclear family where their husband leads the home and he's the head and he goes out and works and he is the breadwinner while she can focus on being the primary caregiver for their kids. But it's not possible. It's just not possible because these men fail to fulfill the traditional role of manhood. They just do. He also just points out how hypocritical that is. So it's like you say you don't want to pay for child support and you don't want to financially support these children, but then get upset when Black women goes out and, when these women go out and they do it all. And, you're calling them the masculine and saying, they're not submissive and they're too independent. And it's like, which is it? And he uses a very, very powerful phrase and says they're schizophrenics. And it really is because it just doesn't make any sense. It's like this contradictory messaging that they share. One day, okay, well, you need to be submissive, but you also need to take your ass to work and mule for 12 hours and fight with the white man to cultivate resources. Like, what the hell? What the hell? Do you want me to be the Stepford wife where I am at home in an apron and I got your food ready on the table and your kids are tucked in bed and I'm ready to bend it over and bust it open for you? Or do you want me to go to work and do this 9 to 5 and be this corporate America queen who's bringing in 6 figures? You can't have it all. You can't have it all. But this is what these men want. And then they, on top of that, they want all that and bring nothing to the table. Absolutely nothing. They bring minimum wage to the table in a managerial role at the Amazon warehouse.
Value man and then betrayed, whatever. However, generally speaking, my first perception, when I see Black single mothers, the first thought that comes to my mind is that some guy went out there, knocked her up and then vanished and then just took off somewhere. Probably in a Kevin Samuels forum right now complaining about single mothers, but who knows, right? My first instinct when I see that is like when I because I've worked alongside plenty of single mothers, like at my jobs and everything. There'll be a person sitting next to me who's a 35-year-old woman with 2 kids or whatever. If I don't know, if she's not told me the story, my first instinct is that there was one of these guys that got her pregnant who was kind of like sleeping around or whatever and didn't want to commit to the woman. I'm not saying that's always the case. Maybe sometimes it is the woman's fault. I can't speak to it. But my first kind of instinct when I see a single mother is the guy abandoned. That's my first thought. But it can depend. Maybe when it comes to Black women versus white women, maybe, and people say, oh, yeah, that's racist or whatever. Maybe subconsciously, I'm more likely to assume the Black man ran away. Whereas if I see a white single mother, I'm more likely to think maybe there was like some amicable disagreement or she left or whatever. Maybe I see it slightly differently, but my first thought is,
oh my Lord. So he is roasting. So he talks about when he sees a white single mother, he just naturally assumes that there was some type of amicable disagreement with the white father where things didn't work out. But anytime he sees a single woman who parented her child with a Black dad, he just assumes, oh yeah, he just pumped and dumped like they all do. Y'all hear this? And I'm a date myself with this phrase, but Tyrone, your slip is showing. Your slip is showing. You delusional dummies really have this weird warped perception that people view you as much more than what you are. So that sorry stat that you're repeating about being the most active fathers in the home, well, everyone knows you're deadbeats, actually. You keep saying that you're high value men, and it's like, no, everyone sees you and sees you for what you are. You don't possess anything of value. Anything. You possess nothing. And I didn't tell y'all, major side note, but I think that this is appropriate for the conversation. Y'all, why did I find out yesterday that my son's dad just had a secret 2 weeks ago? Just found it out last night. Because an acquaintance of mine saw it on their Facebook. He's friends with his mother. So this fool didn't even post the baby on his own damn page. Apparently, his mom posted the baby talking about, wow, this is a surprise for Father's Day. My son has a 2-week-old. A mess, y'all. And mind y'all, he don't do nothing for our child financially or emotionally. We have a 9-year-old, and he fought me for shared parenting, even though he does nothing but pawns our son to grandparents' house during his time. And I remember asking my son at 7 years old, like, "Hey, how was your week with your dad?" And I swear to you not, and I'm not even exaggerating, he said verbatim, "I haven't seen him in months. It's really sad." That's what he said. And this fool done pumped and dumped and had another kid. A baby girl at that, y'all. A 2-week-old baby girl. And child, I was talking to my husband yesterday, and I'm like, well, clearly it was a mistake, kid. Because if my son's grandmother didn't know anything about it until now, I don't even think my son knows anything about it. But I'm just like, good Lord, because he is a super narcissist. He does not need any more children. He's one of those educated lames. And so I've talked about this before, but if this is your first time listening, he's a quote unquote social worker. And he likes to post these photo ops of him with our son on the rare occasions. On Father's Day, he'll post a picture of our son. But he's also a Ray Pookie type behind closed doors. And he was beating my ass and being abusive and going from job to job. He had a 500 credit score, was never financially stable. Still to this day, he's getting eviction notices every other month. And he's a deadbeat. But this man got so many people fooled, saying that he's such a good man, but now he pumped and dumped again. So his slip is showing too now. Y'all, I'm telling you, these delusional dummies, they really do think, this facade, because for a while it worked. He's tricked everybody into thinking, oh, I'm this good man and she's just this evil, conniving, bitter person. And I'm just trying to be a good dad. And I was just trying to be a good husband. And you think that they put 2 and 2 together by now and look at everything on paper. It's like, well, she has multiple degrees. And as soon as she left that situation, she, ended up, getting this directorial role and in 6 figures, and also entered a great marriage where she's flourishing, has this beautiful home, and they have, she's pulling up in this luxury sports car. Like, she's doing really, really well. So who was the common denominator in that situation? So you think they finally put 2 and 2 together, but whatever. That's Blackistan. They lack critical thinking skills. But anyway, he managed to trick whoever this new girl he got pregnant into thinking that, he's a good dad. She's in for a rude awakening. She is in for a rude effing awakening. Y'all, and it's like they didn't had a little girl, and so it's like, you big dummy. He didn't had a son for 10 years that he hasn't taken care of. You really think he gonna take care of a 2-week-old little girl? So his slip will be showing soon, because, he's a delusional dummy as well. He really does believe that he's a good guy and he's this high value person because of the enabling and because of the coddling that Blackistan likes to display for these unicorn men, quote unquote unicorn men. And it's like she's in for a rude awakening soon, because she's going to experience the same abuse, the absentee parenting, the same immaturity, the impoverishment, the financial issues, going from job to job, the mental problems that I experienced. But I bet you she ain't gonna be quiet about it like I was, because I'm a different breed. I kind of tried to be like grown with the situation. I actually, possess some accountability. Y'all like these manosphere men say we don't like to do. I said, okay, well, I made my bed, I gotta lay in, and I'm not gonna go on social media or go telling everybody, who will listen, his family and whoever, how awful of a person he is. I'm just going to remove myself from the situation, learn from it, take that L, and grow. But I bet you this girl's probably going to air his ass out, because he is not going to all of a sudden wake up one day and decide, oh, even though for a decade I've been a shitty dad, I'm going to be a good dad to this little girl. But anyways, I know that was a rabbit hole, but y'all slips are showing, Acres. We are all starting to see you for who you are. These men, these other groups of men that y'all like to speak for, they calling y'all out. Well, y'all's bullcrap. All right, let's keep going.
Responsible young woman ran out on her high-value male, her high-value Kevin Samuels, supporter. Literally no one thinks that. This is just what the manosphere and people in general are thinking is whatever they accuse other people of is usually what they're guilty of. They would say, CBP is simping right now, because in their minds, they would simp for almost any woman they could get. So you're simping, right? anything that you do is usually just them projecting. So when they complain, like for example, they'll complain that society has become gynocentric and matriarchal. That's what they'll say, that society has become matriarchal because they want to have the patriarchy where, their dusty ass takes over. So whenever I listen to these guys, it's 9 times out of 10, it is usually just them projecting. But yeah, I can promise you that broader society does not look at single mothers and think this irresponsible young woman ran out on her high-value male, her high-value Kevin Samuels, supporter. No, like literally no one thinks that. This is just a narrative that they've built up in their mind. Does it happen? Is there a possibility that some women run out on their high-value husbands? Yeah, of course that happens. But it's certainly not the norm, and it's certainly not the perception that outside people looking in. And with regards to the
ain't that crazy? So he done said a mouthful. So it's like, nah, nobody. The greater collective portion of society is looking at Black women and saying, oh, you're the fault. Single mothers are the downfall of the Black community. No one's thinking that, Dusty. No one's thinking that. They looking at your crazy ass like, damn, these men are losers. That's what they're thinking. They're thinking, wow, these fools are very foolish. They keep laying down and slinging peeing everywhere recklessly and irresponsibly, but they're not even man enough to take responsibility for the children that they're creating.
With regards to Black men, nobody looks at involved in it, and it hurts the women. Nothing makes me sadder when I see these pick-me girls that have internalized Kevin Samuels' tough love logic. Like, I guess I need to be a better bride for my low-value husband. It's like, it's so sad when they internalize the vitriol that people like Kevin Samuels spew. It's so sad when they internalize it. So no.
Y'all, so gosh, we'll stop there because this video goes for about another hour. It's great. It really is good. So I'd encourage you guys to check this out. Again, this is Cynthia G's latest video, The Truth About Submission, Kevin Samuels and the Manosphere with the CBP channel. Check them both out because this was a very dope conversation. And I think it is a very powerful and very important message. So I would encourage you to listen to the full audio. But yo, man, this is a mouthful. And I think that this is so important and this conversation is so important. And I'm so thankful that Cynthia actually is engaging in this type of dialogue because we need to view outsiders' perspectives. Because truly in Blackistan, Black women, we grow up with this effed up brainwashing and grow up in this echo chamber where we see these problematic patterns and these problematic behaviors and they're normalized. And we're conditioned to think that this is okay, this is acceptable. And it's like you don't know what you don't know. So what's up is down in Blackistan. What's wrong is right in Blackistan. So that's why you'll see these men normalizing pumping and dumping, and they'll normalize all this F-ish and will normalize making minimum wage and not having a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, then turning around and bragging because you got a house and a car and you're 35. It's like, what, Naker? Like, that's normal. You're supposed to have that. But they'll have you thinking you're crazy and that you're the problem for expecting more than that, more than the bare minimum. When in all actuality, if you really, really take a sobering step back, if you reflect, if you talk to other people from other communities, they'll be astonished and will be shocked at what we tolerate. They'll say, just like this man said on this stream, wow, your men really abandon your children, then denigrate you and make fun of you for being single mothers. Wow, these nakers really left you alone to raise your children, and now they're making fun of you and calling you masculine for having to play both roles of mother and father. That doesn't make much sense. Wow, you mean to tell me, your men will make you mule all day, then we'll expect you to come home and be a Stepford wife, and we'll expect for you to be a cook and clean and sexing machine as well? And all he doing is bringing his little $15 an hour to the table and dirty peeing and bringing home STDs and side babies? So seriously, this is so important. Until we have these conversations, until we take a step back, and look at these things on a macro level, instead of being in this echo chamber that we're in Blackistan, we'll be stuck in this dire situation collectively. So kudos again to Cynthia for having such important, impactful dialogue. So I'm out. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, see you guys. Bye.
If y'all come across a red iPhone, can you please bring it to the sound stage? Red iPhone, appreciate it.